Good morning, all,
Okay.
or good day.
Hey, Bill.
It's still
So,
showing on Gong.
did you have anybody lined up this time, Alexander?
I did try to ask a couple of people about talking about calcium K, but both were too busy or couldn't do it. So we'll have to
Hmm.
talk about calcium K ourselves.
We moved all of our stuff from our Atlanta house, and it's going on the market tomorrow. And
Oh,
Natalie and I are full-time residents down here in the swamp, and Nick Spencer's there.
yeah.
So we've got that stuff just piled up everywhere. We have a storage facility, and our boat just got repaired, so our boat is back, and we're going to be boating like you guys pretty soon. Um, and we are meeting with the builder sometime this week to build a additional storage home and guest quarters on the property with an observatory. So
Wow.
hopefully I can get out of the tent and have a proper observatory. Um, that's elevated about. I'm gonna have to put it on a second or third floor so I can see the sky because we don't have any open areas on this property, and it's very difficult to get in alignment even with the ASI air uh, without having at least 60 degrees of visible sky, which I don't have. So we got a lot going on here, and our forum is doing great. Thank you everyone for being members. And this year, there's some changes. Alexander and Mark already know about it, but our consultant, who I go to whenever there's a problem that I don't know how to fix, which is quite often, has passed away, and we don't have anybody to go to now. So I'm hoping nothing breaks, but we'll find somebody. The hosting package was a 3-year package, and it's due this year. So even though our country is falling apart right now and everything is in disarray, we're going to still have to find some way to raise enough money to pay for the forum for another year, and it's $4,000 to if I buy a 3-year package, which is what I'm planning on doing. And Natalie and I will pay for it if we can't raise any money. But we are doing our fundraiser starting April 1st. And of course, you guys all know how that is. I don't have to tell you, but there will be a lot of nuisance posts on the forum and on Facebook about that. We are sponsoring a group in Vietnam currently. We are sponsoring, of course, the Kosovo Observatory and all of their solar astronomy needs, which aren't many right now because we sent them about $30,000 worth of gear this past year when I visited. We have our guy in Colombia, South America, outside of Bogota, a high school teacher who has a very large and thriving program there. He can't speak English though, so he's not as popular as Pranvera. We have the Tunisian program in the city of Tunis at an old university that was ran by the French, and now it's a Tunisian where they have a very large astronomy program, and we support them with telescopes and cameras and computers as often as possible. But for those of you that have never tried to ship anything internationally, shipping is our largest expense by far. So if I buy a blunt telescope for $3,000 or a Skywatcher telescope for $3,500 here, and I ship it to Tunis, it's going to cost at least $1,500 to ship it there, and then there's going to be at least a 50%, usually a 100% customs charge to get it into the country. And then getting it to the actual person is about a 50-50 gamble because in almost all of these countries, there's no guaranteed internal shipping of any kind. It's somebody has a friend who can get it somewhere, and half the time it gets stolen. So it is actually cheaper to fly. It's even cheaper to fly first class with a telescope to any of these countries than it is to try to ship it there, which I've done several times. But then getting through customs is another thing. Anyway, so that's all the nonprofit stuff, and I know you've all seen the news and you've all seen what's happening in the United States. And while we don't get into politics here, obviously, I can tell you it's way worse than you're seeing in the news, and things are very, very, very grim, especially for retired federal or military people like me. So my military and federal retirement is what pays for most of this program, and I don't expect that to be in existence by the end of the year. But hopefully it will be. But we'll see. I have several family members who work for the U.S. government, and they are all looking for other jobs. And whatever you're seeing on the news, it's worse than that. So anyway, enough of that. We're going to keep the program going if I have to pay for it myself. And I know that all of you are big supporters, so I'm preaching to the choir. But there may be a little bit of an uptick in the number of pleas during this fundraiser. And for that, I apologize. But it has to be done. I have to raise 2/3 of our budget from someone besides me. And that's the difficult part, because in the US, the tax law makes it where I can't donate more than 1/3 of the budget. Well, I can, but it's not tax deductible after that. So, as far as I go, everything is working great on the farm. Fingers crossed. It's still freezing here, so I'm still wearing long johns. And,
Freezing. What's your temperature?
Well, okay, I don't want to hear any stuff about how cold it is in Canada. I don't care. It's in the 30s and 40s here, so it's very cold for the marsh.
Yes, I would say so.
I live at 31 degrees north latitude, so we're at the Florida Georgia border. It's the same latitude as central Egypt, and it's been in the 30s for months now. We had 6 inches of ice a month ago, which was the first time it's ever happened here. But anyway,
well,
that's
I guess I feel for you, because all I've got is rain.
Well, it's kind of changed over to rain now, and the mosquitoes and the gnats. We have a particular kind of bug here called the no-see-ums, and they call them that because you can't see them, and they're tiny little gnats, and they just devour you every time you go outside. As soon as the temperatures get up,
we've got the same critter up here every now and again. Certain areas.
Yeah. Well, down here it's all wildlife and ground litter and leaf litter all over the ground. And we have millions of fireflies in the spring, and it's just a beautiful place. But in order for that to occur, there's a very large bug population here, and the bugs are what bring in all the birds, which is what brings in all the other animals. So when you're doing gardening right now, which we did yesterday, if you stir up the leaves just a little bit, just millions of these gnats come out and they devour you. They literally devour you. And you have to wear long sleeves and bug nets, boots and long pants and everything else. So Natalie has been out fighting them. But as far as solar astronomy goes, it's a superb sky here. It's Bortle 2 routinely. It's absolutely phenomenal for night sky and daytime imaging. It's a little bright, so I have to use additional filters for calcium. But I've been using mostly my SHG 700 spectroheliograph more than anything else. I'm not a big post processor. I really like how you just do a 20-second scan and you've got 22 images presented to you from the software without doing anything, and they're all beautiful. So I'm enjoying that a lot. And at night, the Celestron Origin will give you a mediocre photo to good photo without you having anything to do with it. You're not even aware that it's going. You just tell it what you want to photograph, and it does it all. And you wake up in the morning and there's your photograph. So that's what I'm doing.
You do have an Origin?
I do have an Origin, yeah.
Wow.
And I also have astrophysics mount and astrophysics refractor with a ZWO ASI air setup on it. So I have a high-end automated system and I have a low-end automated system. And the difference is noticeable to all of us because we know how to process and we know what it's supposed to look like. But the difference is completely imperceptible by the average person. So they've come a long way. And I'm looking forward to the automatic solar Origin or CSUN, whatever they're going to call it. So things are changing.
You're going to NEAT?
Yes, I will be at NEAF. I'll be running the Solar Star Party outside. We sponsor 2 teenagers in New England. Their names are Claudio and Ava Stabile, and their father, Claudio Stabile, is a Uruguayan immigrant who's been teaching his kids about science the whole time, and they've started a program in their town that's called Potato Town, if you can believe that. And they have started an entire lending program of telescopes and microscopes for their community. They've built their own observatory through the scouting program there, and we've been sponsoring them along the way with Celestron equipment the entire time. So I'm flying them in to run the telescopes for Charlie Bates on the solar field, and we're going to have him in a Octans tent from Starpoint Australis, which is the tent I use in my yard. And then we're going to give away everything at the end of NEAF. So everything will be raffle prizes, and we'll be using the Skywatcher 76 millimeter and the Skywatcher 100 millimeter H-alpha scopes in that tent. And you know, I just looked at the long range weather forecast, and it is not good. For NEAF, I would bring your long johns if I were you. Franco, do you own a pair of long johns?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I would bring your winter coat with you if you're going to go to NEAF. So yeah, that's the only public appearance I ever do anymore for that, because I like to stay in the background and let everybody else do everything. So that's the status of the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project, and I can't thank you enough for sticking with us. It's difficult to remain positive with what's going on here right now, but we are trying our best.
Thank you.
Take it away. Anybody else?
You do.
Stephen.
Oh, and I have hair now. You can see.
Oh,
It looks like it's like a mad scientist when it's all out and it looks crazy. So I threw some mud on it before the meeting.
so you've gone into the bush and you're letting everything go wild. Beautiful.
Right. I should have a Vietnam vet ponytail any day now and look like a scraggly redneck.
There you go. Can you
not participating up here though? You have any solutions for this? I would appreciate it.
No.
what is it? Turkey?
Yeah, I see.
Stephen, on a side note, could you share your settings for the SHG in the SHG forum on the website at your convenience?
What do you mean settings? You
Like-
mean like scroll speed or something?
Yeah, all the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You know, I don't really have any settings. I mean, I just use a regular mount hand controller, so I don't do anything automated like Min does. He's got all these scripts written that he uses. I use Fire Capture on a Mac, and I use JSolex on the Mac, and I use the number 5 speed, and I really don't control the frames per second or anything else. It usually shoots about 90 frames a second when I'm doing that. And I think the key to that, Bill, is to get the sun way off the slit and get your mount moving at the right speed first before the sun ever gets on the slit, because you get those jagged edges really bad if the mount doesn't move super smooth. And I've noticed that when you first start moving the mount and moving the sun across the slit, it kind of bounces around until it finds a good spot. So for me, I start with the sun maybe 5 to 8 seconds worth of just black at the beginning of the video while the mount gets itself organized. And then it seems to run smoothly through the slit. And then I'll let it go another 5 to 8 seconds afterwards to end the video. Okay. And I think the whole trick in that thing is to get a smooth mount and a video that has black at the beginning and black at the end of significant size, in my opinion. And, once I figured out how to use region of interest to just draw the box right over the H-alpha line or the CAK line or whatever, and not try to capture the entire spectrum, because it's a gigantic file if you try to capture the entire thing. And drawing that region of interest box just right over that line is as tiny as you can get it is really makes it a lot easier and a lot quicker in JSolex, because it spits out those 20 images in less than 10 seconds on my ancient Mac. When you do it that way.
What camera do you use?
I use the 183 chip. I use a Player One Neptune camera. Is it 183? Am I saying that right? Or the one with the 2.4 micron pixels.
Okay.
And I don't think the frame rate or anything else matters. I think the pixel size is the whole key to it. And the disc is so small in your refractor on that device that you really have to have some tiny pixels to pick up all the features. And that Apollo M Max that I have, the difference is night and day using that versus, because it's got 9 micron pixels, and the difference is night and day using that versus the 2.4 micron pixels.
Right?
You're very small pixels. Of course, it would depend on the size of the sun presented by your telescope, but since the slit is only 7 millimeters or something, the image is very, very tiny. So the 2.4 micron pixels allow a much faster frame rate, which is great. And they give you much more resolution of the detail that's passing through the slit. And I know that you can't use these for close up and high focal length type imaging of certain areas on the sun. But, you know, I've kind of I don't even bother getting out the scopes for full disc imaging anymore. I just use the SHG 700 because it's just a phenomenal piece of gear, in my opinion.
What scope have you got it on?
Currently, I have it on a 100 millimeter Skywatcher Esprit that I traded a C14 for recently, and that guy got the best deal of his life. I just got tired of carrying around that giant C14, so I gave it to him, and he gave me a 100 millimeter Esprit, and it's got a focal ratio of f5.3, so it's a very small disc. But you know, Min says you don't need a very nice refractor, but like always, if you have a super nice APO or triplet, it's going to look better than if you have a doublet or something like that. And you know, you can use that thing on a guide scope if you want to. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I've seen posts where guys just hook it up to a 50 millimeter guide scope. They don't even bother putting it on a telescope, and the images are pretty good. But you know, I'm different than you guys. I don't want to sit around and post process for an hour. I don't care to make it look 10% better than it does coming out of the SHG. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the wonder and the awe of the fact that the sun is there, and the features that are on it are presented plenty good enough for me right out of Solex. Okay, so I'm not looking to get an A-pod. I'm not looking to fancify it any or any of that kind of stuff. So I'm probably different than what you guys are looking for, because everybody in here is a better imager than I am, especially Alexandra, who is officially a better imager than me. Having
You
viewed
just
my
won't let
ass.
that go, will you?
But
Stephen, have you
yeah, I'm
tried
not.
any other different wavelengths yet?
Yes, I have. In fact, I imaged extensively in the different iron, the pass bands from iron all across the sun, and I found out a couple things. It doesn't look any different anywhere between H alpha and calcium K. It pretty much looks exactly the same all the way across, and it's strange. And I had that question, you know, because you know everything is so great in H alpha, but there's no other that I've found. There's no other emission line anywhere in the spectrum that looks anything like it. All the other ones until you get to the calcium K and H basically just look like a white light image. So yeah, and I was wondering why Min kind of played down the fact that, you know, you could image in any wavelength. And the reason is because there ain't nothing else to image in any wavelength. You know, I mean, H alpha is so different than everything else. So yes, I have tried in numerous wavelengths. And the only thing you have to do is refocus the telescope in those different wavelengths. You don't have to refocus the camera. And that JSOLEX software, I'm really thinking about trying to support that person and trying to be their sponsor, because that is the best software I've seen in ages. And it automatically recognizes the wavelength. Like I was doing the magnesium triplet. I did many images on each of the 3 emission lines. And then I did the sodium doublet, and I did a bunch of iron emission lines. And without fail, JSOLEX recognized every one of those emission lines while it was processing. And it applied its own version of what it thought the color should be based on the actual wavelength. And that is really, really cool.
That was something I was wondering about, whether you were coloring the images or the software was. So the software gives you the color.
The software colors the image for you based on whatever the guy that wrote the software thinks was a cool image. And I was kind of flattered because he used exactly the same color that I've always used. And also, you know, the inverted image that they use is basically exactly the same as the one Alan Friedman and I kind of came up with in the early 2000s. So yeah, the software colors it. You don't do anything. You put the file into JSOLEX and you tell it to process, and 10 seconds later, it creates a folder that has 21 different variations of the image somehow. And I don't even know how they get some of them, because one of them looks like white light, and the magnetograms and the Dopplergrams are really cool. It shows the movement of the sun. It shows the rotation of the sun. And if there's a fast moving feature, it shows that red shift or blue shift in the image. And I'm not sure how that's done, but I really, really like that Solex software, and it's
And
free.
this is all from the single scan.
Yes, 1 20-second scan for me, and that's about 10 seconds of black on each side with about 10 seconds of data. And you just throw that into the directory and
Hey,
boom.
Steven, what speed do you use to scan?
I wish
Oh.
I could tell you. I use the hand controller, the number 5 speed. So I don't know what that is. I think it's about 16x.
16x, yeah.
Yeah, and that's on a Celestron mount or the AP mount. I use the number 5 speed. And I take my frames at 90 to 100 frames per second. And I don't really think it matters that much, to be honest with you. I think you don't even have to move the mount at all. You can just let the sun go through. And if you take too many frames per second, the software just gets rid of the ones it doesn't want. If you take too few frames per second, then that's a problem, because you'll start seeing gaps where there's lines across the sun that aren't filled with data. But as far as you should always err on the side of too many frames per second, because the software gets rid of them.
So it's good that you do the region of interest, because actually it increases the
Yes. Yes,
the-
significantly. I mean, if you try to image the
Five.
entire frame on that Neptune M camera, you'll get a 3 or 4 gigabit file, and it operates at about 25 frames per second on my ancient Macs. I use 10-year-old Macs for everything. But when I cut down the region of interest, and I feel stupid to even tell you this, but I have no idea what region of interest was until I got this SHD 700. I never even bothered with it, man. I didn't care. But when you cut it down to that little tiny slim line, it quadruples the frame rate and gives you a resulting file that's about 300 kilobytes.
that's all.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, maybe half. I mean, not kilobytes, megabytes. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
About less than half a gig, not kilobytes. My bad. So yeah, I've never been a nighttime astrophotographer, so I don't know all these little tricks and secrets about the different ways to run the cameras. Like a lot of us, and Alan Friedman and Greg People, the only thing I ever used was Astro IIDC and a big giant CCD from Point Grey that shot about 3 frames a second, and that's the only thing I've ever used up until now. So there was no need for any of the tricks, because the camera was so great, and I was only shooting full disc. I didn't really need to know about the rest of the stuff.
So
So I can act like I know a lot, but I really don't.
basically, Min is rewriting how we do our solar photography in that.
Well, I would say the French guys that came up with the whole thing have done that already, and it's just
Yes.
catching on. Min has made it commercially viable, because that device has been available as a 3D printable device for 5 or 6 years now. But I mean, who's gonna, what average person, not including you guys, but what kind of average person is gonna download a 3D printable thing and try to put it together themselves? And that's not something that your average person's gonna do.
Yeah, well,
But-
no, that's what put me off of it. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, Min came out with this, and it's like, okay, well, that
Yeah.
looks interesting. Well, guess what? I'm down the rabbit hole.
Good. You're not going to regret it, man. I'm telling you, I almost feel guilty about it, because I don't do anything to get these images. I mean, I just slap it across the slit and I'm done. I mean, if you want to stack 50 of them, you can do 50.
Well, one of these days when
50.
I get some sunshine, we'll get some first light and we'll throw it on the forum and see how it goes.
I don't know who this person is, but I'm
No, I
going to
don't either.
remove them if they give us porn.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
fact, see you later. Okay. All right. Yeah. I think I told you the story. I know we don't have anything going on right now, but I told you the story when we used to do the weekly bird watcher Zoom meeting, and I had a very important guest on, and this was back during COVID, and the guy just started talking, and he's talking all this very emotional stuff about how he started out and everything. And then this dude came on and started putting up big old boob pictures and naked ladies and drawing offensive words on the screen and everything. It was horrible. So we got to watch for that. Who else wants to talk about something?
Steve, how
Well,
are you
I
getting
wanted
on
to-
with yours? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I had asked Alexander about, possibly having somebody talk about calcium K, and what I was looking for is, some people talk about tilting the filter slightly or double stacking. And that's where I just have the BF 1200 I slap on my scope and shoot, and it's great. But I think, Stu, haven't you adjusted yours somehow?
Yeah, somewhat.
Oh.
So I've basically stripped out pretty much everything from the Lunt Calcium K module. I'm only left with the yellow filter, and my double stack is 2 of those yellow filters, so the back end filters. And in front of those, I've got Barda calcium filter and an Omega filter, but I don't know if you can get those anymore. So it's really stripped out of the lump module. But yeah, as I say, double stacking, I use 2 of the yellow filters at the back. That seems to give a narrow enough bandwidth to allow me to see some of the filaments,
Yeah.
prominences mainly. Sometimes filaments, but mainly prominences.
So I wondered, how do you actually stack 2 Lunt calcium K etalons? Or they're not really etalons.
No.
They're just filters.
Like a blocking filter. Yeah. So bit of engineering.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm out.
Yeah. So nothing about my calcium setup is standard. As I say, stripped out all the original stuff, apart from the yellow filters. And then the second filter is basically like a modified eyepiece. So something that you would put into the back of the standard eyepiece. So
what is the band pass of this filters? Do you know?
I really don't know, but it's it's narrow enough to start allowing me to see the prominences. So whatever that would be, I'm not entirely sure. Because it's broader than hydrogen alpha, isn't it? I mean, hydrogen alpha you want to be sort of 0.5, 0.3.
Yeah, I can't imagine them producing a sub-angstrom bandpass without using something more than filters.
Yeah, exactly. So with it being calcium K, it's a broader absorption stroke emission line anyway. So you don't have to be quite as narrow as hydrogen alpha, but I have no way of measuring it, and I'd only be guessing what it is.
Right.
But yeah, so that's how I've arranged mine, and as I say, it's very, very custom. There's almost nothing about it that's regular.
Figured that.
And that's why we need a speaker to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I did ask Mark to see whether I could get him to come, but Sunday nights
Mark Townley.
is his family night, so I knew it was a long shot. But I think, when he's talking about like tilting the filters, he uses like calcium K filters from the PSTs. I think he's got about 3 PSTs that he's taken the filter out of and put them into his own sort of like mechanism. And then what you have to do is you have to tilt those particular filters to get the reflection out and to get it most on band as well. And I think that people like Christian and that are using these Aluxa filters as well, which are similar to like the calcium K from the PST. So again, what they're doing is they're putting them in a line and then tilting them to try and get them on band in the best possible way. I think it's completely different to having sort of like a Lunt wedge. But then, like what Stuart's done, he's put like different 2 Lunts together, and I think that Leo has put 2 Lunts together as well, I think. So several people have like double stacked their Lunt wedges together. So there's lots of different ways of doing it.
Well, you know, like I was saying earlier, the all the different wavelengths between the two popular ones, there wasn't much to see. There is a lot to see. It's just that the band passes are so small that it's impossible to eliminate the other wavelengths enough to see the features. Because you know, we're not imaging the absorption line, we're imaging the emission line inside the absorption line. And the hydrogen alpha emission line is enormous compared to the rest of the emission lines. So you know, trimming down and making it a smaller passband in calcium K is of course a good idea. And I would love to do that in the other wavelengths, but I don't think it's possible optically to do it because the emission lines are so small in the other wavelengths. But that would be an interesting topic. So Mark Townley, you're talking about Mark Townley?
Yeah, I'll have to
too,
try. I'll have to try Mark again and try and
he's too important.
persuade him.
It's too important to come here and talk to us, man. But yeah, so that's about it. That's about all I have.
So, Stephen, looking at the aurora behind you reminds me of Nick's holiday. So,
Oh yes.
yeah, we like to hear more, Nick.
Oh gosh, where would I start? It's the sort of holiday that happens to other people, not to us. We generally take our little Westie up to Scotland or to Northumberland or something like that. But because I got my NHS pension lump sum last year, and because I've always wanted to go to Lapland, and because it's solar max, and not trying to seek the aurora where I possibly could, you know, it was just a no-brainer. And Nikki that came with me, was more sort of into the feed, you know, meeting the huskies, going on a husky ride, feeding the reindeer, that sort of thing. So we were like, right, we'll look for a package that provides all of that. Found it. And all the time before I went, I was mentally preparing myself not to see the aurora, that it would be good enough to see the reindeer, it would be good enough to see the huskies. And we were there for 4 nights, 5 days. And the first 2 nights it was cloudy. I think they shone a little behind the cloud. You could just see a faint green on the second night. And then we were just lining up for the evening, going hunting the aurora activity. And then, bosh, the sky lit up. It was unbelievable. It moved so quickly, it was so bright, you could see the colours, it was just spectacular. So that was the best show that we had. The following day, it was a stronger storm. So you know, you see the pictures of the aurora similar to those behind Stephen, where they're just incredibly complex and curves and twists and all sorts, just like that. Curves, twists, the incredible structure of the thing that was happening, but it was cloudy. So we took a series of just iPhone grabs because I didn't want to get too hooked, you know, hooked onto getting a great picture. I wanted the experience more. But when you was past several photographs quite quickly, you can just see this tremendous structure moving, incredible, amazing. You know, naturally you're like, oh, I want to go again, but it would never be as good. So now I don't want to go again to spoil the memory. So yeah, it was fabulous. Thank you. And of course, you recorded it on your magnetometer, and I'm loving this teamwork thing that we've got on.
Yeah.
That was great to see, and good also because before we went, I was watching the coronal hole pass across the front of the sun, and there was 2 complex regions as well. One was 998, and I think it was the other one was the 1000. And while we were there, I couldn't work out which it was that had caused the storm, but I think it was solar wind from the coronal hole. So, you know, no, I suppose it doesn't matter really, does it? But it was just to dot the I's and cross the T's.
Yeah, fabulous.
Yeah, I'll never forget seeing them. It's impossible to describe. You know, to do it justice. And I'll never forget seeing them for the first time in Canada and watching them as a young man on a submarine in the Navy. It's indescribable. You can't relate the greatness of it to someone until they see it. And I'm really glad you got that experience.
You.
I couldn't believe it when I first saw them as an adult in Edmonton, Canada, at some stupid astronomy club lecture or something. But we went outside and was like, could not believe it. And these people didn't even bother. I mean, they didn't even notice. They were just so used to it. I stopped and stared at it for an hour.
Wow.
But that's great. Good for you.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Well, there you go. Very short meeting. Alexander, you look like you need to
It's good though.
to
It's
eat
good.
some dinner and take a nap.
It's
I need
good.
to take a nap.
Good to see everybody.
I've got about 2 hours of processing to do anyway, so.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's just keep up the forum. You know, we've got the best forum in the world, and I can't tell you how many times I get messages from people who've just discovered the forum and they want to ask me all these detailed questions about everything, and I just tell them, say, go on the forum and ask the question. But we do, you know, if anything, I did the Kosovo Observatory and the Solarchat forum. So, and you guys make that happen. So, you know,
Yes, and we're
if I
very
don't- if
glad
I-
of the Solar Chat Forum.
yeah, I am too, and it means a lot to a lot of people. So,
Oh, we've made so many friends, you know, along the way, haven't we? So, you know,
Yes.
without Solar Chat, I wouldn't know all of you guys for a start.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's very true.
No, it's
Yeah.
a great,
it's
I
brought the
mean,
whole of the world together, really.
it's wonderful.
It's a
Thank you
good
so-
accomplishment. It makes me
Yeah.
very, very, very proud to
We
have
have to
something to
keep
do
it
with it.
going.
Absolutely.
So empty your wallets, fuckers. Okay. All right. I'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks everyone for coming
Bye.
Yeah.
anyway.
Bye,
Take care
everybody.
all.
Take care,
Bye.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.